Well, welcome back, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome Jay Ratliff to this segment as we discuss the stock market and day trading. Hey, Jay.
Hello, Sally.
How are you?
Doing great. Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, I want to cover considerable ground during this very short time, but I want to go over your background first of all so people know. All right, so you have 20 years experience in the travel industry. You're aviation analyst for Fox News and iHeartMedia. Former general manager for Northwest Airlines. I like this one. Former travel coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Award-winning author. You contributed to the Exodus program, which of course helps prisoners when they get released and as they're getting ready to get released. Board member for several charities, including cystic fibrosis, and father of 5 terrific kids.
That's the one I'm proud of.
I bet. Well, we have a lot to get to, so let's get started. Your career started in the airline industry.
It was, Sally, Monroe, Louisiana, the first city I went to work right out of high school. Loved it. Never had a day going to work I didn't enjoy going to the airport. It was always fun and fascinating in an industry that I loved.
So when did the idea of trading stocks occur?
Well, I was driving between travel agencies. I think it was probably early 1992. Heard a guy on the radio say that the stock market could be used as a business. I thought that statement was a little, I guess, stupid at the time, if I can be candid, because I thought the stock market, come on, it's hit or miss. But I was intrigued, so I started looking into the stock market. And a lot of the people that I worked with had businesses to fall back on. Remember the airline industry in the early 90s? They were losing billions of dollars. We were normally just a few years away from our next layoff. So the idea of having a business that I could trade stocks, oh, I love that. Most of the concepts that they taught, very risky, but a couple of the ones I liked about channeling or rolling stocks, fell in love with. So I started in the early 90s watching the market, and it built from there.
And at one point, you moved into a motel?
That's true. Yes, it was. In fact, I thought to really give it a go, I'd sell everything that I had.
Really?
Moved into a motel room, put what little I had in a storage thing. I thought I'd be there a few months, and it turned into more than a few months. It was the better part of 10 years. It was, had you told me when I moved in there, Jay, you're going to be here for 10 years, I don't know that I would have stuck it out. But I kept making progress as I was watching the stock market. My position with Northwest Airlines was eliminated. So it was basically, that's what I was going to do. And on that dial-up computer, fighting everything I thought.
Right.
And it wasn't a hotel, it was a motel room. And it was room 121 at the Travelodge. In fact, I still have the key.
No way.
And I look at it frequently, Sally, as far as where I came from, where I was at, and the price it took for me to get to where I was at. People thought I was crazy, probably was, and probably still am. But the idea was I was going to try to find a way to make it work, and very pleased I was able to do so.
So let's back up. What is day trading?
Day trading is basically the buying and selling of stocks that you do in a daily period. Now, when I started out, I wasn't day trading. I would buy a stock like a Comair that was around $20 a share. I'd let it go several months up to $25 a share, and I'd sell it. So I was holding stocks for 4 or 5 months at a time. But I didn't like my money being in the market for a long period of time. So the idea of day trading was looking for stocks that moved like that in the course of a day. Now, not 25% moves, but maybe a stock that would 5 or 10% in the course of a day. So day trading is simply buying a stock and selling it in the course of the same session. And for me, sooner the better. Because day trading is great if you can put your money in the market for a few minutes at a time and then get it out instead of leaving it in the market for longer periods of time where anything could happen over the course of several years.
You know, there seems to be almost a hostile reaction to day trading, though, you know? It's a scam, or, oh no, don't do that.
Well, it comes from two camps. The first camp are people that have tried it. It didn't work. They lost a ton of money. And I hear from these individuals every week. I'll be on a radio station. They'll send me an email and say, Jay, it's a scam. Come on. Nobody can make money day trading. What they're really saying is, look, I'm a lot smarter than you. And if I can figure out a way to do it, then I'm sure you can't do it. And I recognize that. But the other camp is the big boys on Wall Street. Look, they don't want us buying and selling stocks apart from them. They say, trust us. Let us make your decisions. Complicated is the stock market. Don't spend time trying to figure out. Let us do it. And as a result, a lot of people just kind of throw up their hands and say, I'll leave it up to somebody else, which I'd rather have control over my own financial future as opposed to leaving it in the hands of somebody else.
Exactly. So why aren't more people interested in day trading, or is that just a perception?
The interest is there.
Right.
A lot of people think it's too complicated. There's a lot of reasons why they don't get involved in it. But one of the reasons that most people do is, look, it's a flexible business. I was looking for a business, but I didn't want to spend $500,000 on a franchise where, Sallie, I'd have to then be married to that business. You know, I'd have employees and customers and inventory and insurance and the facility, and I couldn't go on vacation because I'd be worried about everything. Day trading is just your laptop. When my wife and I go to Savannah, I take it with me. We go to Disney because she loves Disney. She's a big kid. I day trade while she goes and plays at the park, and I meet up with her later in the day. If we want to go to Boston for a week, we can do it. It's a portable business, and that's one of the things that just absolutely fascinated me during all those motel room years. I thought, if there's a way I could make this work, I could trade from anywhere in the world that I chose to be. And being someone who is sick of corporate America, all that appealed to me. And that's one of the reasons I stuck it out until I found a way to make it work.
So I have to ask you, what is your take on all the financial analysts that are out there?
The ones on TV
yeah,
and all?
Exactly.
Well, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush because I think some of them do a good job. But Sallie, several years ago, Procter & Gamble, their stock was trading $60, $70, $80 a share. It dropped suddenly down to under $40 a share. My dad had a lot of money in Procter & Gamble. The experts said, all we need to sell. And he did. And a few months later, stock's right back up where it was at. He lost a lot of money by listening to those people because he didn't know any better. Just a few months ago, GT Technologies, ticker symbol GTAT at the time. It was an $18 stock down to $11. Those experts talked about what a great buy this stock was. It was $11 a share, certainly to go back up to $13, $18 a share. 1 week later, company files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This $11 stock goes to 73 cents a share. It's now traded on the stock, the pink sheets right now, for 25 cents a share. So those experts that people follow and put a lot of their money into sometimes really annoy me because retirements, college education funds, wiped out in the course of just a day because they listened to one of these experts. No. I'd prefer to do it myself and teach others how to do that as opposed to putting a lot of money into the market for long term. It's just too much risk.
Quantitative easing.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, what is it?
It's a program that in the early, 1990s on was discussed. It was basically the concept where the government would buy and pour money into the stock market. It was funny because in the 90s it was discussed. Nobody liked it. The Bank of Japan, very vocal, saying that's not a good way from an economic standpoint to support an economy. It's funny, it was the Bank of Japan that was the first one to say that it was a bad thing to do, but Japan was the first country to actually do it. The stock market was kind of dropping. They panicked, so they started pouring money into it to try to stabilize, they thought, the economy. The United States has done it 3 times over the last 7 years now, where they have poured billions of dollars in the market to try to support it. But the problem is the market kind of goes through its ups and downs. The government feared any sort of a correction, so they said, let's start this quantitative easing program to try to keep things stable. The problem is it artificially inflates or supports, if you will, in my opinion, the market. And it prevents the market from doing what it does. The market goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Quantitative easing is something that I think disrupts that natural flow and I think sets things up so that when there is a correction, which right now we're still waiting on one here in the States, it's been 7 years since we've seen one, it could actually accelerate the course of that correction, and that scares me. I think the government should stay out of the market, let the market stand on its own. So yes, I'm not a fan of quantitative easing at all.
I was going to say, needless to say, you're not a fan.
I'm not. Just let the market stand on its own, as they should, and let's go from there. When you start monkeying around with things, that's when things start to fall apart, and that's not what you want to have happen on Wall Street.
Okay, let's get to your day.
Okay.
how does a typical day start? When does it start?
For a day trader, typically opening bells at 9:30. So you've got your computer on at 9 o'clock, you got your stock screener, you've got your trading platform, you're waiting for the opening bell with your cup of coffee or whatever you're drinking, and then off to the races you go.
So is there a lot of research you have to do before the opening bell?
Typical trader, yeah, they're reading all the Barron's and the Wall Streets and watching Squawk Box on TV, a lot of really informative programs. I don't. We don't. We don't do research. We wait to see what the market brings. We look for stocks that are reacting in a certain way. So we don't have to do any of that research. Sallie, we flip on the computer, make sure everything's working, wait for the opening bell, and just look for those stocks that are overreacting and chase them from there.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's not complicated then?
No. In fact, it's just a matter of observing, knowing what to look for. And if you're chasing a New York Stock Exchange stock, NASDAQ, or something on over-the-counter, the bulletin boards, you know what to look for. So when you see stocks start moving in this direction, you can very clearly plot an entrance and an exit point, and you know what you're looking for. It's a checklist that we follow. It's surprisingly easy. In fact, one of the things my students tell me, and they're afraid to say this sometimes, is, Jay, is that all there is? I mean, is there anything more to it than this?
Right.
And I say, well, there are some additional steps, but that's the basics of what we do.
Yeah, because I would think you'd have to be a financial expert.
No, thank God you don't have to be. I would never have made it if that's the case. I'm not somebody who has a big background in finance, but I found a way to make stocks create a lot of money in a short span of time. So it's something that it's an easy process, and I'm glad it's not complicated. It would have been much more difficult for me to figure out had that been the case.
Okay, but what about taxes? I mean, how do taxes work with day trading?
Well, the perception is that, oh my God, the taxes, you get all these, no, you get a 1099 at the end of the year from E-Trade, a TD Ameritrade, whoever your broker is. It's this difficult. I print it off and I hand it to my accountant. It's a 1099. I mean,
that's easy.
That's it. Now it's about this thick, of course, right. But the idea is that it's easy. And I talk with a lot of people who say, "Oh, it must be a nightmare." It's not. It's a piece of cake.
So, how much money do you day trade with? 100,000, 200,000? I don't know.
My cash portfolio is right at $30,000. That's all I need.
Really?
And from that, I shoot for $1,000 a day. I've had months with a portfolio of that size where I'll make 11,000, 15,000. October of 2008, when the market was going nuts over the banking crisis at that time, I made over $41,000. I couldn't buy and sell stocks fast enough. It was crazy.
Wow.
So when somebody comes to me and says, "Gee, I've got a portfolio of a couple $100,000, I want to learn how to day trade," well, that's fine. Do something else with 150, and if you want to use 40 or 50,000 to day trade, that's fine. And then the goal is invest that 150,000 in your long-term stuff, and let's see if we can't make more with day trading with 30, 40, 50,000 than that money makes long-term, and that's kind of the goal. But you don't need a lot of money. And of that $30,000, I might put $2,000 on this stock, $3,000 here, $1,500 on that stock. We split it up, we diversify, so that we're only using a small portion of money on any given stock. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So I'm curious, what was your best year?
$199,950 some dollars. I was so disappointed I didn't hit the 200,000, and that was with a portfolio. I was trying so hard to push it over the top, but that was with a cash portfolio of $30,000.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's the year before that was 150, 175,000. So it's something that if you know what you're looking for, you can use that small amount of money, put it in the market for short spans of time, and it can create a great deal of cash.
Which you kind of just answered my next question. So you can use a small amount of money.
You can. Now, if you have a portfolio of less than $25,000, the Securities and Exchange Commission says that there are some specific limits. You can only make so many round-trip trades in the course of a day if your portfolio is under $25,000. But we have students that trade with $10,000. I once was challenged by one of my students about, can you really make money using a small amount? So I took $1,000 in my portfolio for 90 days. And I don't remember the exact numbers because of your question, but I think the first month I made $1,400 or $1,400. The next month I made 30-some hundred, and then I think 4,000 the third month, just using $1,000. And I was diversifying that, putting 400 here or 600 there. So you can use small amounts of money and still do very well. as long as you've got a system that you can follow. A lot of people jump into day trading and say, I can make a lot of money. They say, and they've said this to me, Jay, I understand a lot of people lose money, and about 90% of people who jump into day trading do when they do it on their own. They say, I've spent a whole career making good decisions. I know these other people lose money, but I'm going to get in and make good, logical decisions, and I'll make a lot of money. About 6 weeks later, I hear from them, and they go, oh my gosh, I'm losing all kinds of money, because they try to apply logic to the stock market, which many times is ruled by emotion more than anything else. And if you don't have a proven system, you need to be very careful when you're approaching the stock market.
So is day trading the same today as it was, say, 15 years ago?
I'm using the same techniques now that I was before the bubble crash in the late 90s and leading up to those horrible attacks on September 11th. The same program, the same process when the recession hit and in the recovery, it works. The only thing that's really changed are the trading tools. The stock screeners are better, the trading platforms are better. The tools that we use as day traders are far more comprehensive, so it's easier, if you will, in some regards to trade now than it was 15 years ago. So sure, yeah.
So when did you decide that, hey, I want to start training people in day trading?
Probably 2007, 2008. It was a struggle because, well, one of the reasons was this. I remembered what it was like to be in that motel room for all those years. Right. And I would talk to people who'd lost their job. You know, they turned 50 and their corporation kicked them out the door, basically saying you're making too much money and you're on your own. And I thought, you know, there needs to be a way that I can take what I've done and offer it to other people. So 2008, created a curriculum. Again, I was a trainer in the airline industry, so it was easy to do. And I wanted it to be a very comprehensive program. So I spent a lot of time and decided it would have to be over the course of a year if I was going to teach somebody how to engage the stock market. A lot of my students say, Jay, we're going too slow, I want to go faster. And it's like, no, we're going to take it a step at a time because you want to make sure that you do it correctly. If you get in a hurry, that's when you make mistakes. So normally after 2-3 months, they're trading on their own, small and building up, but it's a very slow, methodical process. So.
But when you teach someone, aren't you also kind of competing against them?
I guess you're saying I'm creating competition.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you look at a lot of the stocks that we use, they're trading at $12, $13, $14 a share. They trade 900,000 or 1 million shares a day. There's a lot of room for individuals. And our group normally is early to the party, so we're grabbing stocks in the early standpoint before they go up. So if you had 800 people trading using this system, it wouldn't be a problem. So yeah, it's something that's not an issue for us because of the numbers of shares that are being traded in a lot of these stocks. So
yeah. How many people do you teach?
Limited to about 40 a year. Because of the fact that I deal with them one-on-one. We have a class start every month and only a few a month that are accepted so that I don't get overwhelmed. In the early stages, they're doing homework. And then once they get into the practice stage, we're working one-on-one together. So having everybody start at the same time would be too much for me. So it's a slow integration where we just have a few start each month. Makes it easier for me to maintain.
And everything's online?
Everything's online, yeah.
That's great.
I've got people in Afghanistan,
really?
The Grand Cayman all over the country here that are trading and learning and sending me pictures to make me jealous of Jay. Here's my picture outside of Grand Cayman or this or that. So they're all over the place. My Hawaii students give me grief, but goodness, they get up at 2:30 in the morning to watch the market. So they can give me a little grief. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, who's your typical student?
Well, I mean, we have the age group is probably 20 to in the mid 70s. We've
really?
got college students. We've got stay-at-home spouses, husbands or wives that stay home. We've got truck drivers, retired businessmen and women, some attorney generals. We've got teachers, truck drivers, men, women. I mean, they come from all walks of life. Most of them have never traded a stock in their life. Most of them say, Jay, there's no way I can learn how to do this. I'll talk with them and I'll say, yes, you can. And then once they get over that initial hurdle and they see, man, this is easy, I can really do this, then I have to guard them because then they get a little bit too anxious. Oh, I'm doing real well, and they get a little overconfident. I got to kind of hold them back at that point so that they don't make any mistakes. But from all walks of life and really from all over the world.
All right, so be honest.
Uh-oh.
Do they all succeed?
No, they do not. No. I wish I could say they would, but I'm not going to lie to you.
Right.
They don't. And there's different reasons for that. And I'd love to say every single student does. Most of them succeed. Some of them take it on a part-time basis, full-time basis, some a spare time basis, where they say, Jay, all I want to make is a few thousand a month because that's going to allow me to do other things at this stage of my life. They volunteer for charities, they have grandkids, they like to travel. They'll work 2 or 3 days a week and have a 6-day or 5-day weekend because that's what they want to do. They have a certain amount of money they'll make, and they'll make that, and then off they go. There's reasons why people don't make money, and they don't follow the rules.
So basically, listen to your teacher and follow the rules.
Right, and they're simple rules. I mean, the idea that we don't chase a stock above the low price of the day, that's one of our secrets. If you're one of my students and you say, Jay, I like this stock, it's trading at $2.50 a share, it fits our criteria perfectly, I might say, Sally, I agree. It is a stock we would love to use, but it's already been down to $2 a share. That's above its current price of $2.50, so leave it alone. And Sally may say, okay, and off we go, or you may say, that may be the case, but I'm going to buy it anyways. Look, at your money. You can do what you want. I'm simply there to kind of advise and recommend what you should do. But what's probably going to happen is you're going to buy that stock at $2.50 a share. We're going to want to sell it before the end of the day. And it drops to $2.40, $2.45, and you're going to have to sell for a slight loss because we chased a stock we shouldn't have. We also don't chase stocks that have news, normally. There's some exceptions, but most of the time we leave them alone because we're not in the business of interpreting the news. So as a result, we can rule out a bunch of stocks. But you as a student might say, Jay, I know this industry. I was involved in this industry for decades. This is a good company. This is a good price. And you buy the stock, and I say maybe you shouldn't, and then it drops 15 or 20%, and then you have to exit with a loss. Again, because we're chasing a stock that we shouldn't chase. The rules are simple, but making sure that you follow those rules is one of the things I'm constantly reminding our students. Stick with the fundamentals, follow the rules, and you can be successful.
And it sounds like there's a lot of hand-holding. I mean, you are right there with them.
At the beginning, because everything's online, where we're watching the market together. You're spotting stocks. I don't tell you the ones to look for, you tell me. And we watch those stocks together, and we point out how they're reacting, what they're doing, say, okay, at this point in time, this indicator says this is going to happen, and we watch it together. We know exactly where to jump in, and once we bought it, we know exactly when to sell that stock. There's no guesswork, there's no gut feeling. We know if we buy it here, this is exactly where we're going to sell it, so we set our order, and then we start looking for the next stock to use.
So how long will you continue to teach, do you think? Do you know?
As long as my schedule, I guess, will allow. The original game plan was 5 to 10 years was all I was going to do. But I really enjoy working with people. And, when you get emails from students that are in their mother's hospital room where they're able to day trade and make some money and make $1,500 an hour and a half and then be where they want to be instead of being at some job where they have to beg for a day off to go see somebody in a hospital or to go see your kids play or any of the other things that happen in corporate America. You know about that, I do as well. To help people get out of that, yeah, it's great. So I love doing what I'm doing, and I'll continue doing it for the time being.
But that's what I love about you, though, because you're so passionate about this.
Well,
you really are.
It's a great, day trading is the best business vehicle, I think, going today. Because you can take it anywhere. You don't have the customer headaches, the inventory, any of the garbage that comes with a typical business. I used to day trade where I would make my money by 10:30, 11 o'clock, close the computer and go play golf. You'd work an hour and a half, it was a rough day, and off you go. You can't do that with any other business.
Right.
If you want to go spend a month in Florida, you can do it. You don't have to ask anybody. So yeah, it's easy to stay passionate about something that can impact people's lives as much as this does.
So how do people find out where you are, get in contact with you?
Well, the website is Day Trade Fund, but most people find me by Googling J. Ratliff stocks. They can find me without any problem. But again, Sally, they don't need me to learn how to day trade. Anyone can do it. They can learn on their own. Simply watch the market long enough. You'll start to see some of these repeatable patterns. And then over the course of time, do some practice trades for 5 or 6 months. Start until you get your batting average to about 70%, then use a little bit of money and go from there. Again, I want to encourage more people to day trade than I would ever be able to teach. So I constantly say, look, you don't need us. You can learn on your own. Just take it slow, learn from your mistakes before you start spending any money.
I disagree. I think if I'm going to be day trading, I want you right there with me. I mean, you've convinced me. Yeah, because at first I was like, day trading, I don't know, but you've convinced me.
Well, to people, it's gambling, is going to the racetrack. But look, if you've got a 70% batting average, you've got very specific entry and exit points. This isn't gambling. It's actually reducing your risk because you're limiting the amount of exposure or risk that your money is in the market, because you're limiting the time it's in there, you're reducing your risk. Yeah, I day trade to eliminate risk, and sometimes people don't understand that.
Well, thank you very much, Jay. Say it again. Where do they find you?
Daytradefund.com.
Daytradefund.com, and have fun day trading, everyone.
Investing in securities involves risk, including the risk of loss. Investors may make or lose money. Past performance is no guarantee of future results, and nobody can guarantee what the market is going to do from day to day or minute to minute.